I'm G new. Click to edit lad. My sister took my boyfriend. He passed an STD to her. I found real love while she was left facing an incurable illness. Now she's overwhelmed with regret. My sister Olivia had already talked about herself for the third time that hour while I quietly moved food around my plate at the dinner table. Every meal with Olivia felt like a TED Talk. Instead of showing off a diamond ring, she tilted her hand to catch the light as she spoke, examining her perfectly manicured nails. Luke, my boyfriend, sat beside me scrolling on his phone under the table. His attention had drifted elsewhere while I sat right next to him. Across from us, Olivia's boyfriend Will sat with his arms folded, watching her with an expression that suggested he'd heard the same story many times before. "So I've been thinking," Olivia said, scanning the table like she was presenting a keynote. Will sighed. "Here we go." "I have an idea," Olivia continued. "It's a little wild, but just listen." Her look shut him down instantly. Will leaned back without reacting. I used to think Will was quiet because he lacked personality. Later, I realized he had learned that speaking up around Olivia led nowhere. "I think we should swap boyfriends," Olivia announced. I laughed automatically, assuming she was joking. I turned to Luke, expecting him to laugh too. He didn't. For the first time in months, he looked up from his phone and focused on Olivia. "I'm serious," she said, smiling the way she always did when she wanted something. She gestured toward Will. "He's boring. No offense, babe. He never wants to do anything spontaneous. He prefers staying in, watching movies, cooking dinner. It's like dating a retirement home." Will gave a quiet snort. "Still better than dating a tornado that destroys everything and calls it excitement," he replied calmly. Olivia ignored him. Leaning forward, she added, "Luke is adventurous. He's fun. He's always open to trying new things. We'd be far more compatible if you really think about it." I stared at her. "You're out of your mind," I said evenly. "I'm being practical," she replied. "Why should we stay in relationships that don't fit when we could just trade? None of us are married, Ella." "That's the most ridiculous thing you've ever said," I answered. "And you once thought the sun and the moon were the same thing." "I was 12, she snapped. "Stop avoiding the point. I'm offering you an upgrade." She waved at Will like a prize. Will raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet. After clearing his throat, he said slowly, "I mean, it's not the worst idea." My body went cold. I turned sharply toward Luke. "Excuse me?" He shrugged casually. "I'm just saying, it could be interesting. We've been together 3 years. Things get stale." "Stale," I repeated. "Don't pretend you haven't noticed," he replied. I had noticed. I just thought we would work on it together, not use it as an excuse to replace me with my sister. Olivia clapped her hands. "See? Luke understands. Just 1 month. If it doesn't work, we switch back and forget it ever happened." "No," I said. "Why not?" "Because it's insane. Because you're my sister. Because this isn't a reality show." She rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. Will doesn't care, right?" Will looked at me. Behind his blank expression, I saw exhaustion, maybe even pity. "Whatever ends dinner faster," he said. Olivia smiled and pulled a folded paper from her purse. "I even made a contract. 1 month minimum, no backing out, no telling our parents." She slid it toward me. "Unless you're scared Will won't like you." That was when I understood. She knew exactly how to push my buttons. The sensible choice would have been to stand up and leave. Instead, Luke reached for the pen. "Luke, don't," I warned. He signed without looking at me. "Relax, it's only a month." Anger took over. After years of excusing his selfishness and lack of effort, he ended our relationship without hesitation. Olivia signed next, dramatic as ever. Will followed with a quick scribble. Everyone looked at me. I shouldn't have stayed, but I refused to beg. I signed, slammed the pen down, and stood my ground. Olivia smiled. "Trust me," she said. "This will be the best thing that's ever happened to you." She didn't know how right she was. 3 days later, Will texted me asking to meet for coffee. I hesitated, then agreed. We met at a cafe between our apartments. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. Without Olivia beside him, he seemed relaxed, lighter. "This is strange, right?" he said. "Extremely," I agreed. For the first time, I noticed his smile. We talked honestly, about Luke, about Olivia, about everything that had gone wrong. Eventually, the truth came out. Luke had been hiding an STD. Olivia didn't know until it was too late. While Will and I tested negative, Olivia was left facing the consequences of her choices. In the end, her breakdown wasn't about remorse. It was about loss. And that realization gave me clarity I didn't know I needed. I told him that when Luke signed the paper without even looking at me, he had already checked out of our relationship. In his mind, I was already gone. Will nodded slowly. Yeah, that was hard to watch. Was it that obvious? I asked. He thought for a moment. I don't know if bad is the right word. It was more like he was never fully present. Every time I saw you together, he was on his phone or staring somewhere else. You'd be talking, and he'd already be mentally gone. I frowned. You noticed? He paused, then added, I noticed because Olivia does the same thing to me. Different style, same behavior. She's not distracted, she's just waiting for her turn to speak. Every conversation is her holding space until she can bring it back to herself. The TED Talk effect, I said. Exactly, he replied. I used to think I was boring. She told me that so often I started believing it. But then I realized she calls anything boring that isn't centered on her. A movie she didn't choose, boring. A restaurant that isn't trendy, boring. Wanting to cook dinner instead of going to an expensive club, boring. She called you a retirement dinner, I said. That's new, he replied. Usually it's grandpa, old man, or my personal favorite, why are you so obsessed with being comfortable? He copied her voice perfectly. I laughed more than I expected. She's exhausting. I love her because she's my sister, but she's exhausting. She's a black hole, Will said calmly. Everything gets pulled into her orbit. Your time, your energy, your money. He told me he once spent $950 on a purse for her birthday, only for her to return it because the color wasn't the right shade of beige. $950? I asked, stunned. He shrugged. She saw the one she wanted, so I bought it. I shook my head. Luke had forgotten my birthday the year before, completely, even after reminders. He'd said birthdays weren't a big deal. Olivia, meanwhile, demanded a surprise party and complained that I invited her regular friends instead of influencers. That means she wanted attractive people for photos, I said. Apparently not attractive enough, he replied. At some point, the tension faded. We weren't uncomfortable anymore. We were just two people comparing experiences. Can I be honest? Will asked. Please. When Olivia suggested the swap, I wasn't shocked. I was relieved. I'd been trying to leave for months. Every time I mentioned breaking up, she cried, accused me of emotional abuse, or threatened to hurt herself. I felt trapped. My stomach tightened. That's manipulation. I know, he said, but when you're inside it, you don't see it clearly. You just feel guilty all the time. He explained that signing the contract felt like the first door she had willingly opened. Even if it's only a month, it's a month where I don't have to pretend. I understood more than I wanted to admit. Luke had made me feel like asking for attention was unreasonable, like expecting basic effort was asking too much. I kept shrinking myself to fit what he offered, and it was never enough. We both chose wrong, Will said. We did, I agreed. He smiled, softer this time. At least we're stuck with each other instead of them. Is that the silver lining? I guess we'll see, I said, smiling back. For the first time since that dinner, I felt something other than anger. I felt understood. Random question, I said. What do you do for work? He hesitated, deciding how much to share. I actually quit my job 3 weeks ago. I tried to stay neutral. Looking for something new? He laughed nervously. I don't need to work anymore. Then he told me. He had won the lottery. Not a small amount, millions. I choked on my latte. After a long coughing fit, I said, you probably should have started with that. Yeah, he admitted. And Olivia doesn't know. Nobody knows. I understood immediately. If she found out, she'd never let him go. Everything she criticized would suddenly become perfect. I looked at him differently then. The man my sister dismissed as boring had quietly become a millionaire. She's going to lose it, I said. I know, he replied. It didn't take long. A week later, Will called his mother to tell her the mortgage was paid off. I was there when he made the call. Olivia came home unexpectedly and overheard everything. She burst into the room, demanding answers. Will told her to leave. She refused, accusing me of knowing, of planning, of stealing him. You gave him up, I said evenly. No one forced you. She screamed that if she'd known, things would have been different. That's the point, I replied. You only wanted him if there was money attached, and right now, you're proving him right. For the first time, Olivia had no response. She looked like she might burst. "It's not fair," she cried. "I deserve to know. We were together for a year. You should have told me." "Why?" Will asked quietly. "So you'd suddenly find me interesting? So staying in, cooking, and living a calm life wouldn't seem boring anymore?" "Olivia, I know exactly how that conversation would have gone. The moment you knew money was involved, everything about me would have become perfect. That's why I didn't tell you." Olivia opened her mouth, then stopped. For once, she had nothing to say. She grabbed her bag, slammed the door, and knocked a picture frame off the wall on her way out. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. The next morning, my phone lit up with calls from my mom. Olivia had demanded an emergency family meeting, and I was told to come home immediately. No excuses. When I arrived an hour later, Olivia was already staged on the couch. A blanket wrapped around her shoulders, tissues scattered nearby, eyes red and swollen from carefully timed tears. My mom sat beside her, rubbing her back. My dad stood awkwardly near the fireplace. "Ella," my mom said softly, using the voice she saved for moments when she thought I was in the wrong. "We need to talk." "Let me guess," I replied. "Olivia shared her version, and now I'm the villain." "No one said that," my mom answered. "Your sister is hurting." Olivia sobbed loudly. "I just want things to go back to normal." I admit it. I shouldn't have suggested the swap. But Ella keeps rubbing it in my face and refuses to switch back. That's not fair. "A mistake?" I repeated. "You planned this for weeks. You drafted a contract. You brought a pen to dinner." "I didn't know what I was giving up," Olivia said. "He hid things from me. How was I supposed to decide without all the facts?" "So now it's his fault you treated him badly?" I asked. "You didn't need his bank records. You needed to respect him." My dad cleared his throat. "Ella, maybe your sister has a point. Things have gone too far. Why not end this early so everyone can move on?" "She's upset because she missed out on millions," I said calmly. "Not because she lost real love. If Will were broke, she'd be posting brunch photos with Luke right now." "That's not true," Olivia snapped. "You don't know my heart." "You didn't realize what you had until you saw his wallet," I replied. "That's different." My mom sighed. "Ella, please consider ending this early, for the family." I looked around the room at the staged concern, the pressure, the clear attempt to guilt me into giving Olivia what she wanted. Something settled firmly in my chest. "No," I said. "The contract says 1 month. No early exit. No parents involved. You wrote those rules so I couldn't escape. Now you can't either. You want Luke? Go be with him. Leave Will and me alone." 2 days later, Will came to my apartment looking exhausted. He collapsed onto the couch and handed me his phone. "You need to see this." The screen was filled with Olivia's messages, dozens of them. Apologies, promises, begging. She said she missed his cooking, his hugs, his presence. She promised she'd change, stay home, watch whatever he wanted, never complain. She even offered to cook, something she once said she'd rather die than do. "She's desperate," I said quietly. "She offered to quit Instagram and stop going out," Will added. "Said she'd accept a boring life if it meant being with me." I shook my head. "She doesn't want you. She wants the money." Will put his phone down. "I'm done." "What will you do?" I asked. "Stay here," he said softly, "with someone who actually sees me." For the next 2 weeks, I was happier than I'd been in years. Life with Will felt easy and natural. We cooked together. We talked about everything and nothing. He remembered how I liked my eggs, that I hated cilantro, and that I always needed water before bed. We stayed up late watching bad horror movies and laughing at the acting. He taught me his grandmother's pasta recipe and did annoyed when I overcooked the noodles, twice. We ate on the living room floor because neither of us felt like using the table. It was perfect. "You know what I admire about you?" he said one night. "My wit and charm," I joked. "No," he said. "You're real. You don't perform. I can breathe around you." No one had ever said that to me before. "You matter too," I told him. "You're steady. You're kind. You show up." He leaned in and kissed me. It felt natural. Our first real date was at a small Portuguese restaurant he loved. That's when Olivia reappeared. "Oh my God, what a coincidence," she said, appearing at our table in full makeup and heels. "Mind if I join?" "Yes," I said flatly. She ignored me and pulled up a chair. She warned Will about rebounds, said I had a bad relationship history, and claimed she was protecting him. "This isn't a rebound," Will said calmly. and you weren't invited. When direct interference didn't work, she switched tactics. She showed up everywhere. Coffee shops, movie theaters, bookstores, always calling it coincidence. Soon my family joined in. Texts accusing me of manipulation, calls saying Olivia wasn't eating, concerned messages meant to shame me. I felt no guilt. She's rewriting everything, I told Will one night. She's saying I planned this. He took my phone away. You're not the problem. You're just the only one who sees her clearly. That night, Olivia called me. Calm, cold, no tears. You're really choosing him over your sister, she asked. I'm choosing honesty, I said. You created this situation. He was mine, she snapped. You threw him away, I replied. After a long silence, she whispered, you'll regret this. I'm not wasting anything, I said. You waste what you already have. Then she went quiet. Completely. A week passed. No messages, no ambushes. The silence worried me more than her chaos. You don't know Olivia, I told Will. She doesn't quit. She resets. Then she texted, can we talk? Coffee tomorrow. I agreed. Alone. She apologized calmly, said she'd accepted things, said her fight was over. Enjoy him while you can, she added softly. Something about that tone unsettled me. At 2 a.m., my phone rang. Olivia was sobbing uncontrollably. I slept with Luke, she cried. Then she told me about the STD. The room spun. Luke had been with me days before the swap, and suddenly, everything changed. Ella, what's wrong? I rushed to explain everything, shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I'm coming over, he said. Don't move. He arrived at my apartment within 15 minutes. He hugged me without speaking, and we stood in the doorway for what felt like forever while I tried to steady my breathing. We need to get tested, I said quietly against his chest. Both of us, if I have something and we've been together. Hey, Will said gently, lifting my face. I haven't been with anyone else. Whatever's happening, I'm not worried about me. He brushed his thumb along my cheek. I'm worried about you. We'll deal with this together, okay? I nodded, even though guilt weighed on me. We went straight to the clinic. Luke arrived 5 minutes later, clearly irritated, like he'd been pulled out of bed for something unnecessary. This is ridiculous, Luke muttered as we walked in. I told you it's probably nothing serious. You're all overreacting. Overreacting? Olivia shouted, drawing stares from the waiting room. You told me after we slept together. That's not overreacting. That's not attempted murder, Luke replied flatly. I don't care what you call it, Olivia snapped. You should have told me. Who does that? The kind of person who wanted to avoid this exact conversation, Will said calmly. I'm not the villain, Luke insisted. I found out and told people. That's more than most guys would do. A reward for doing the bare minimum? I asked. You had something and still slept with people. That's not honesty, Luke. That's reckless. I didn't keep sleeping around, he argued. I slept with Olivia once after I found out, and I told her right after. Right after isn't before, Olivia said sharply. Right after doesn't protect anyone. Luke stood when a nurse called his name first. Maybe wait for your results before judging, he said before disappearing down the hall. Olivia broke down again. Will wrapped an arm around me, and I leaned into him to block out her crying. When my name was called, I was led into a small, brightly lit room. The nurse drew blood, handed me a cup for a urine sample, and explained that results would take 48 to 72 hours. I answered questions about my sexual history in a numb haze. Before leaving, she gave me a practiced look of sympathy. Try not to spiral. I know it's hard, but worrying won't change the outcome. Will followed me in, even though he said he wasn't concerned. For solidarity, he explained. Olivia went last. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 15 minutes. The four of us stood in the parking lot in complete silence. Luke leaned against his car with crossed arms. Olivia kept checking her phone as if results might appear early. Will held my hand without saying a word. This is your fault, Olivia screamed at Luke. If you hadn't pushed for that stupid swap and had been honest, none of this would be happening. You wanted excitement, Luke replied coldly. Congratulations. Is this exciting enough? Don't blame me for your disease, Olivia yelled. It's a condition, Luke snapped, and I got it from someone else. Legally, I'm a victim too. You're the victim? I said. That's your takeaway? Luke threw up his hands. I'm done. Call me when you stop treating me like a criminal. He drove off. Olivia collapsed against her car, crying again. 48 hours, Will whispered. We just need to get through 48 hours. He didn't leave my side, even though he had nothing to worry about. I answered the clinic's first call when they said they had all 4 results and only one of us would test positive. 2 days later, the clinic called while I sat pretending to watch TV on Will's couch. I answered before the second ring. Hi, this is Ella. Miss Holmes, this is Dr. Warren from the clinic. Your results are in. Are you available to discuss them? Please, I said. Can you tell me now? She paused. Your results are negative. You're clear. I gasped and collapsed onto the couch, crying instantly. Will rushed over, hands on my shoulders. What did they say? I thanked the doctor and hung up. We sat quietly. Will answered his call next. He nodded once, said thank you, and hung up. Negative, he said. I knew it, but I needed to hear it. I laughed through tears. 10 minutes later, Olivia texted me. Results are in. Mom and Dad's house. Now. She didn't say what they were. Will drove. I stared out the window, unsure how to feel after weeks of damage, sabotage relationships, family pressure, and betrayal. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt empty. When we arrived, Luke's car was already there. We heard shouting before we reached the door. Olivia stood in the living room, arms crossed, eyes swollen. Luke sat on the far end of the couch, small and defensive. My parents hovered nearby, unsure. I wanted everyone here, Olivia said shakily. She looked at Luke. Tell them what you told me 3 weeks ago. I have an STD, Luke said quietly. I found out a month ago. I should have told people sooner. My mother gasped. My father went pale. Will held my hand tighter. I'm negative, I said quickly. Relief flooded my mom's face. The room went silent as everyone turned to Olivia. I'm positive, she said. Her voice broke. Because he knew and slept with me anyway. Luke tried to explain. The doctor said it was manageable. I didn't know how to bring it up. Manageable? Olivia shouted. I have to live with this forever. She shook as she spoke, losing strength with every word. I did this to myself. I had Will, kind, loyal, honest Will, and I threw him away, a millionaire who actually cared. She pointed at Luke. For this. Get out, she told him. Luke looked around for support. None came. My father pointed to the door. Luke left without a word. Olivia collapsed, sobbing. Through tears, she admitted the truth. The swap wasn't spontaneous. She had planned it. She'd been texting Luke for a month before dinner. Luke's instant agreement. It all made sense. I didn't want to look like the villain, she cried. You manipulated me, I said quietly, so you could take my boyfriend without consequences. She apologized. I felt nothing. Holding Will's hand, I walked out. I had nothing left to say.